President Awad, members of the President's Cabinet, esteemed faculty members and colleagues, distinguished guests, good evening. On behalf of the American University of Kuwait, I would like to welcome you all to the second presentation of the Faculty Speaker Series for this fall semester. For those of you who are joining us for the first time this evening, the aim of the series is to showcase faculty expertise and to provide a platform for university community dialogue and debate. Before we start, I would like to thank our President, Dr. Rauda Awad, for her leadership and continuous support of faculty research endeavors. I would also like to thank Dr. Fatima Shibli, co-chair of the Faculty Speaker Series. Our appreciation also goes to our colleagues in the IT and PR departments for providing the support to make this event happen. Our speaker this evening is one of our own, Dr. Iyad Abudush. He will be presenting Web Accessibility, the Case of Kuwaiti e-Government. Who is our presenter? Dr. Iyad Abudush is a professor in computer science at the American University of Kuwait. He is also the director of the Office of Research and Grants. He obtained his PhD from the Computer Science Department at New Mexico State University in 2009 and has supervised several senior projects and master's theses. Dr. Abudush served as coach and committee member in the ACM Jordanian Collegiate Programming Contest for 3 years and the Kuwaiti Collegiate Programming Contest for 2 years, 3 and 2 years, sorry. He has received research funding from different agencies, including USAID, Microsoft, King Abdullah II Design and Development Bureau, the Deanship of Research and Graduate Studies at Yarmouk University, and the Jordanian Scientific Research Support Fund. Dr. Abudush secured a fund to establish the first accessible computer laboratory for people with disabilities in the north of Jordan. He has published more than 50 articles in international journals and conferences. Dr. Abudush has been a visiting researcher at universities in Malaysia, Lithuania, and the United States. He has served as a reviewer and committee member of several specialized international journals and conferences. His research interests include optimization algorithms, machine learning, human-computer interaction, and accessibility. Dr. Abudush was recently promoted to the academic rank of full professor, and on behalf of our colleagues here at AUK, I would like to congratulate him once again and wish him continued success. Dr. Iyad, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Dr. Salima. At the beginning, I would like to thank Dr. Salima and Dr. Fatima for their efforts actually in taking this faculty speaker series into this level of keeping that going on. At the beginning, I would like also to thank the university administration for their belief in, empowering the research of our faculty. So let me share my slides with you. I'm just making sure that I'm sharing also that with the sound because I'm having some videos in the slides. So, all right. Can you see my slides?
Yes.
Great. All right. I know that it's late here in Kuwait, it's 6 p.m. So I tried my best to make it as entertaining as possible. All right. Because I know when we say research and web and so on, many people will say, okay, this is technical, it's boring and so on. But as I said, I tried my best to make it as entertaining as possible. So let's start. So the talk will be about web accessibility, the case of Kuwaiti e-government. This is the outline of the talk. So first I will introduce you to the topic, then I'll talk about assistive technologies, web accessibility guidelines, web accessibility evaluation, and then I'll start talking about the research actually, evaluating the accessibility of Kuwaiti e-government websites. Now let me start with a story. Now this story actually happened with a blind person in Australia. It was in the year 2000. In the Olympic Games. So what happened here is that a person won a court case against the organizing committee of the Olympic Games in 2000. The problem was the website of the Olympic Games was not adequately, let's say, accessible. So the problem mainly was that it will keep refreshing with the results, and the blind person was not able to understand the content of the website. So he actually went to the court and he won case in the court against the organizing committee of the Olympic Games. And this happened in the year 2000. So we are talking about how long? More than 20 years, right? Now, the United Nations Convention on the Rights of Disabled Persons, in 2006, they established a commitment from the governments that they will be ensuring the accessibility for the different resources provided for the society, especially for people with disabilities. And according to the World Health Organization in 2011, over 1 billion people live with some form of disability. Now here in Kuwait, the total number of registered people with disabilities as of 2021, it's 55,015. But normally in the world, it's actually around 3 to 5%, the number of people with disabilities. Now, what type of disabilities are there? There are actually 4 types. There is the visual disability, which include low vision, for example, color blindness, hearing disability like deaf, motor skills disability, for example, a person who has problem with his with moving his limbs, like a person who has a Parkinson's disease, for example, cognitive disability, for example, people who have problem with their memory or they cannot read. Now, what are the barriers that are encountering people with disabilities? There are 3 types of barriers. First, there's what we call it environmental barrier, in which a person will not be able to access a facility for the public. There is attitudinal barrier, in which a person will be discriminated because of attitude or because of assumptions. And there is electronic or technical barrier, in which a person will not be able to use a technology because the technology cannot be converted from a specific form into another that is accessible by what we call it assistive technology. Now I will talk about assistive technology. What are assistive technologies? Assistive technologies are hardware or software tools that can be used by people with disabilities to help them to access technology. Let me give you some examples. The first example that I will show here is screen readers. Screen readers are software tools that are used by people with disabilities, especially by blind people actually, and people with visual impairment, so that it can read for them the content of a computer or from the mobile, for example. Let me give you example from this video because it shows how a blind person can use a screen reader.
What a screen reader does is, for example, I'm going to start to read this page.
Navigation item. Link, University of California, San Francisco. Link, about UCSF. Link, search UCSF.
And what I will now do is slow down the speech rate.
Rate 80%, 75%, 70%, 65%, 60%, 55%, 50%, 45%, 40%. Link, UCSF Medical Center.
So as I was about to say, a screen reader converts what's on a computer screen into information that can be displayed through synthetic speech or braille output.
All right, so as you see here that this blind person, he cannot use a mouse. He can use only the keyboard, right, to access the computer by listening to the content that appears on the computer screen. Another example of assistive technology is the auto-scan. The auto-scan is a tool that can be used by people who have motor disability because it will be doing a cycling on the icons that you see on the screen.
How you doing? Good, I hope.
Sanitizer.
Why are you so good all about sanitizing right now? What happened?
Microphone.
Salim, can you please mute Carol? Her voices. Yeah. All right. So the auto scan, as I said, is another example of assistive technology that can be used by people with disability, especially the people who have motor disability. So in this case here, let me show you that with a video.
So 1, 2, 3. And you're going to see the scan show up on the screen. So we did set it to pause for 3 seconds on the first item, as you saw there. And it's just going to auto scan through all the options on the home screen. We've set up Bluetooth, so the white and the orange switch are to select an item. So let's just go ahead and select down here. So once again, it's going to pause for 3 seconds on the first item. and then start to scan. So I'm going to go into the browser. We did turn auto tap off, so it's going to bring up this menu here. To select an item, you're going to select the first option, tap.
I think you get the idea. So mainly it will do scanning of the different icons, and it will allow the user to keep selecting. So it will keep repeating that to make it easier for the user to do the selection. Okay, can you see the screen? Can you see it? Okay.
App.
All right, the third type of assistive technology is refreshable braille. This is electromechanical device that can be used by the blind to help them read the text. So it will raise pens so they can feel, you know, the content that is shown on the screen. So these are some examples of assistive technologies. Now, the next thing that I'll talk about is web accessibility guidelines. Now, in 1999, the W3C, by the way, is an organization, non-profit organization for standardizing the web. They actually started with an initiative called Web Accessibility Initiative. This happened, as I said, in 1999, and they created a set of guidelines that can help the content of the web to be more accessible. Now, this was Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 1.0, all right? Now, after that, they keep developing on that, and they created Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0, and recently in 2018, they created this Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.1. And actually, it has been created by a group of experts. So as you see here, the editors for these guidelines are experts from Google, from Adobe, and from universities. So they created these guidelines so it can be followed by the international community when they are creating websites to make sure that these websites are accessible for people with disabilities. Now, the guidelines principles are 4. So they say that the content or the user interface, let's say, must be perceivable, which means that the user interface components can be perceived by the user, operable. So the user interface component can be operated also by different input devices, understandable. So the content can easily understood by the user, whatever the user disability is, and it has to be robust, which means that the content can be reliably transferred into any type of assistive technology, like the technologies that we saw at the beginning. Now, when they created these guidelines, they created them into 3 different levels. So there's level A, which we must have in the website. So this is the most basic level of compliance with the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines. And there's AA, which we should have. And there's AAA, which is good to have, but it's difficult. Now, most of the time, the websites, they need to be compliance with these 2. So either 1A or 1A and AA. Let me show you some examples. Now, how can a blind person perceive an image in a web page? For us, we can look at the web page and simply we can see the image, right? What about a blind person? How we can know what's the content of an image? So there is a guideline here says provide text alternative for any non-text content. So you must provide a description for the image. So when the screen reader is reading the web page, the blind person will know what's this image about. Another example of a guideline. How can a deaf person know the content of a video? Again, there is a guideline for that. Provide alternative for time-based media. For example, closed captioning for videos. Another example from the guidelines, make all functionality available from the keyboard. In some cases, like this example here, in this example, we did a research on e-government in Jordan. This happened in 2011, I remember. And at that time, we did a testing on University of Jordan website. And the problem was the menus was accessible only using the mouse. So if you try to access the menu using the keyboard, you will not be able to access that. So now we'll be talking about web accessibility evaluation. So we talked about the guidelines. So how can I evaluate my website to see if it's accessible, right? Using these set of guidelines. Now there are three techniques actually. There's a human subject test. So I can have people with disabilities test the website with specific tasks and see what kind of problems they have. And based on that, I can fix the website. There is experts review, in which a person who knows these guidelines, he can do some tasks using assistive technology, and then he can mention what kind of problems this website have. Or we can have automatic evaluation tools. Automatic evaluation tools, if you go to the W3C, you will find around 150 evaluation tools. Okay, so there is a huge number of automatic tools that will do the evaluation for you. The problem with the tools is that they cannot detect all the problems, but they are doable. So you can use them to just double check or verify that there is a problem or not. One of the examples of the tools is this Wave, all right? So Wave is one of the famous tools, actually. It's hosted by WebAIM, one of the US I think it's a company, but it's actually hosted by the University of Utah. So they have this tool that is used to check for accessibility problems. So in this case here, for example, I went there into their website and I used the URL address of the e-government portal in Kuwait here. So I just paste that there and then clicked on the link to submit that. And then you see here that it will show me a report of the problems that I'm having on the website. I can click here, by the way, on the details to show me more details about the problems. And I can check any of the errors by mouse over them. This is an example of one of the tools. All right, now, all this was an introduction, by the way. So we can reach to the research. Okay, so the research, again, is about evaluating the accessibility of Kuwaiti e-government website. And this paper is already published, actually, by myself and Dr. Zainab Al-Mi'raj from Kuwait University. Now, the automation of government services is essential, as you know, especially nowadays. You see in COVID-19, you know, there is lockdown and there is people not moving and so on. It will be very nice if I can finish all the work that I need to do with the government while I'm sitting at home, right? Using a website or a mobile application. Now, there is a big project in Kuwait here directed towards making all the government services available online to all country citizens. Now, how did we do the research? At the beginning, when we started, actually, there's many e-government services. We started and we found that there's 95 government services, and we need to pick only part of that to do a testing for the service. So we picked the top 17 e-government services used in Kuwait in 2018. And we did two techniques here, automatic evaluation and expert evaluation. These are the e-government services that we selected, or you can say the top 17 e-government services that we selected. For example, from the Ministry of Health, there's the request for appointment for food checkup. And there's many other services, as you see here in this table. Now, when we start the evaluation, we discovered that some of these services are, unfortunately, was unavailable. So 5 of the 17 services, the highlighted ones here, are down or unavailable, okay? Now, after that, what we did is that we started to do the automatic check. If you remember, at the beginning, I told you that we will do automatic check and we do expert evaluation. So we started with this automatic evaluation for the service or for the e-services. Now, the automatic evaluation, we did that using 5 different tools, all right? But what I will show here is only the first one, this one, all right? The other ones, you can see them in the paper if you would like to check what happened in these different tests. So the A-checker and total validator tools, we use them to check for the Web Content Accessibility Guidelines 2.0 Level A conformance. So we are checking only the basic level. We did not check AA or AAA. We just checking if we have the basic level of conformance with the guidelines. And what did we discover? We discovered this, okay? The portal homepage, which is supposed to be the opening door for the website, it has the most number of problems, right? So if there is a person who has disabilities trying to access the e-government from the page of the portal, the opening page, it has many of the problems, which is here in total validator 235, and in a checker tool, it's 45. And here you see the number of problems that we have in the other services that we just mentioned before. Okay, this is for the automatic evaluation. Now for the expert evaluation, what we did is that task-based expert review. So we mimic the challenges by completing different tasks using a screen reader. Me and Dr. Zainab. So we perform 16 different tasks. These are the tasks that we did. And the measures parameters for these tasks were the finish. If we were able to finish the task successfully, the time needed to complete each task, the pages and links description is enough in the website, and can we use the keyboard only for navigation? And when we open a link, does it open another new window accidentally, because this will make a problem for a blind person? Now, again, this is part of the discovery that we found in that paper. We found that there is some tasks were impossible to do, okay? And these are the numbers of these tasks. So task 3, 6, 10, 11, and 17. So for example, task 3, which is this one here, was impossible to do, right? And why is that? The service is down or not available. Task 4 and 13, the service is only keyboard accessible. So you cannot use the mouse to complete the task. The English site opens an Arabic web page. This is for these tasks. So you are in an English website, then when you open a link, it will open for you Arabic website, which is a problem because the screen reader will start reading in another language. Inaccessible CAPTCHA needs to be used to submit the form. For example, in this case here, you see that when I'm filling this form, for example, I need to fill this CAPTCHA. CAPTCHA is the image that you need to fill, so the machine will make sure that you are not a software. You are a human, right? To verify that you are a human. So this is not accessible. And the form has no labels. The form has no labels means that when I'm having a form like this one, for example, and I'm reaching to this field, it will not tell me that I have to enter the phone number, for example, because there is no text that is describing the form field. So again, this is a brief about the outcomes that we discovered from that study, which shows that most of the services were inaccessible, unfortunately. Now, why we need to have such kind of services accessible, especially for the government? For people with disabilities and elderly, they will be able to use these services. And actually, it's very important for them to use these services because it will make it easier for them to complete the tasks that they are trying to do with the government. Also, mobile users and users with low internet speed, if the internet or the website is accessible, it will make it also better for them to use these services. These are the references. And thank you. Any questions? Dr. Salima, you are muted.
Thank you, Dr. Iyad. We are ready to open the floor for discussions. If you have any questions, I will call on you one by one. Dr. Ahmed, please go ahead.
Thank you, Dr. Iyad, for your presentation. I have a question here. I think you are crossing 13 ministry to test and measure and evaluate the web accessibility here in Kuwait. 13 or 17, you mentioned.
Yeah, we did actually the testing for 17 different e-services. Yeah, but again, this is sampling. So what we did is that we did the top 17 out of 95 services.
Yes.
So the top was unfortunately inaccessible.
Yes, but have you ranked those ministries that with the lowest services and the highest services?
I don't remember actually in the paper. I can check that and get back to you. But I remember that we did the analysis in different views. But I don't remember if that analysis we did it if we did exactly the analysis that you made, which is important in my opinion. But if I think about it right now, I don't think we did that, because if we want to do it this way, we need actually to do the evaluation for the services that are provided by the different ministries. But the purpose of the study was not that. The purpose of the study was to point out on the most found problems when we are dealing with these e-services, with when it's come to the web content accessibility guidelines. And actually in the paper, we listed these main issues that we found there. Now, in my opinion, I did a similar study, by the way, when I was in Jordan, and I shared that with the government, and after that they apply for funding from Microsoft, and at the end they were able to, because the problem here is what? The problem, in my opinion, the problem here is not that the people don't want to do things. The problem here is awareness. People don't know. So if you go to the web, because the same exact problem happened in Jordan, as I mentioned. We did in that study not only the testing on web content accessibility, but also we did evaluation, or we surveyed actually the web developers, the people who actually created the websites. And we discovered that none of them, I remember we sent email to 105 people, and the reply was only from, I think, 12 or 11. Anyway, so all the people that replied on the survey that we sent to them after several reminders, none of them were able to identify the correct place to get the web content accessibility guideline. They don't know. So this is the problem. So we discovered that the problem is the awareness. And so in my opinion, if we go back to the ministries and the government in Kuwait here, the same problem. In my opinion, they don't know. And if you go to the developers who created these services, they are not aware that there is, because if you tell me how much it costs, if I'm having accessible website and non-accessible website, does it cost that much? Will it cost the government money? No, zero. It will not cost anything. Why? It will need only awareness. They need to know only about these guidelines. They need to be training their developers to know about these. And then they will be able, when they are developing these websites, to be able to develop them in a way that is conforming to the guidelines. In other countries like US, for example, or UK, they have laws that will be preventing any website that is for the public to have these kind of issues, actually. Yeah, but thank you for the question. I know that it would be good also to have that kind of comparison.
Yes, I'm asking about that because, in the new Kuwait 2035, the planning of the new Kuwait, they mentioned in one of the criteria to develop this type of platform.
I'm aware actually of that. Yeah, but hopefully they will improve on that. I'm hoping that they will have that into consideration, because here when we do that, by the way, it's not a luxury. Here you are talking about human rights, right? So when you are talking about human rights, you are talking about people with disabilities, that they have the ability to use resources that are available for other citizens. So it's something that is it has many dimensions, let's say. Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Dr. Bilal.
All right, thank you all. Thank you, Dr. Riyad. Very interesting topic. My question is, do you see a possibility to apply web accessibility programs, or even to really become for something beyond just reading or getting an information? For example, to give them ability to be creative and design things. For example, a lot of people with disabilities, they were really innovative in a way.
Yeah.
So do you think this is also that platforms for innovation, for coding, for example, for designing mechanical, electrical components can be accessible for also disabled people. Do you see the future that this might really grow to that direction?
Yes, I agree with you. There's many possibilities here when we talk about innovation that is coming from. But again, if we want to have that, we need to provide them a way to be accessing the information, right? So, I remember when I was in the US, I was doing my thesis evaluation on a blind school, and one of the students who did the evaluation, she was a girl 16 or 15 years old, the fastest person that you see alive typing on the keyboard. Okay, so
Yeah.
they actually improve very fast in their abilities to do
course.
things. Yes, and I agree with you that if we provide them these kind of technologies to make it accessible for them, then we are opening for them opportunities.
Yeah,
now in
course.
our countries, unfortunately, for example,
Well,
if
this
you
is a
ask me,
global thing.
yeah,
Yes.
لا, but لا, in Jordan, for example, one of the things that was there is I saw many times people will be bringing a person who's blind to write for him. So there's like a companion for that person to write for
Yes.
him the exams, for
Yes.
example. This is a very
Yeah.
simple example of what can happen. Now, each exam, that student who's blind, he must bring companion with him to write for him the answers.
Mhm.
Now, if this student were able to use screen readers, he will be able actually to attend the exam by himself and to answer the questions by himself, right?
Yeah.
But we
Yes.
don't have that actually. Why? Because we assume that blind person cannot use a computer,
Mhm.
and we will prevent him from actually using the computer. All right. So yes,
Thanks.
but I agree with you that this can open innovation. Yes, thank you.
Dr. Sharifa?
Thank you, Dr. Iyad, for such a great talk and for also making it informationally accessible to us,
Yeah, tried my
despite your
best.
field being different.
I keep
it was
updating till
great.
the last minute, actually. Thank you.
Thank you so much. I have a question specific to Kuwait. I don't know if you address this in the paper. When it comes to e-services, are the developers of these pages a centralized office like Citra? Is it specific to each ministry, or is it consultants doing this?
I'm not aware actually, but this is a good question. Yes, because if it's central and they are aware of this, it will be pretty simple for them to fix that. But if it's as you said, scattered, it will be a big problem because they need to do. Because let me give you example. In Jordan, for example, when we had that, when we had that research paper and we give it to the government, they decided that they will apply for funding, and then they get funding for. And they get funding from Microsoft to do training for their developers. But at the end, they were able to bring, I remember in that workshop, we had around 30 developers because they had, in each ministry, they have IT department that will do the development for their website. I don't know about Kuwait, if they have the same thing or it's different. But yes, this is a good question. Yeah.
Dr. Ali?
Yes, thank you, Dr. Iyad, for this nice talk and topic. I have just a comment or a question in line with Dr. Bilal's question. How deep is the AI, artificial intelligence, virtual reality, augmented reality are involved in this field? Then we can, as Dr. Bilal mentioned, for example, we can maybe investigate their skills.
Yes.
So is there kind of research made in that direction?
Yes, but in my opinion, not that much. When I was doing my PhD, part of my PhD was the dissertation. Was having a haptic device that will be used in order to help people who are blind when they are navigating charts. One of the main problems, by the way, for the blind is that the mathematical concepts, it's not easy for them to understand the mathematical concept because they need to visualize the things in a way that is accessible to them. So when you say, for example, I'm having this fraction, they cannot see it, right? So they need to feel that kind of two-dimensionality of the things. Anyway, so what I did there is we created a device that will be helping them to navigate through the haptic device, so they will feel the chart and so on. And from there, the many researchers actually, they start working on developing this for virtual reality and so on, and many other work has been done also in the area of gaming for people with disabilities, or using assistive technology to help them in the virtual environments. But I think there is still a huge amount of research that can be done in that area. Yes.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Professor Deo?
Thank you very much. This is an excellent talk, Dr. Ayad. I was just beginning to write a message to everybody. If you were coming before a grants committee right now and you said you wanted money to pursue this project, you'd be a strong candidate. Limada, because it was clear that you understand the technical field extremely well, so that you could probably persuade people who know much more about IT than I do. But at the same time, for those of us who are not very advanced in IT, the implications of what you're saying for all sorts of fields are clearly mentioned. I had not thought of this, for instance, the issue of accessibility to anybody blind, those hard of hearing and so forth, is a serious issue, as you said, but as your talk developed, it's also a human rights issue. And you're coming up against other forces. For instance, if I were a software provider, I would see providing the things you're asking for as an additional expense.
Yes.
And therefore, if I know that the people allocating the money are only interested in the bottom line, I would try to get away with doing nothing. The comparisons you made with Jordan were remarkably good. But let me tell you one thing that I draw out from what you're saying. You were talking about responses to the work that you were doing in Jordan and saying, well, we only got 11 or 12 after repeated inquiries. From surveys or people who do survey research, I don't, would say to me that getting the sort of response you seem to have had, 10%, 15%, is not bad at all. Now, here's my question. As I'm listening to you, the access to what you need to evaluate the accessibility of government websites is something that you don't need any special permissions for. You just need the ability to open a computer and to try to access these things. But now you're at a point where, as you say, you've actually published something with a colleague from KU, and I don't know the date of the publication, but
it was 2019, December 2019.
Beautiful. I'll tell you why beautiful. In that time, has there been any response from any government department or agency saying, yes, this is a problem. Let's talk more about how we can respond to it. Have you had any response from any element in the government of Kuwait? As you say, most of it's not centralized.
Yeah.
Have you had any?
Actually, what I did after publishing this is that I went into, there is here an office for the people with disabilities, I think. I don't remember the exact name, but I went there and I talked to them about this, and they said that they can see what they can do about it, but I did not hear from them back. So in my opinion, and usually when I do research, I like the research that has impact on the society. So I don't do it for the sake of research, but I do it because I see that there's a problem and we need to find a solution for that problem. So I do my part, I give it to them, and it's their part to continue on that, right? So
that's a very polite response, I suppose. But since your very framing of the question indicates the implications for a sizable minority in the country involved, Kuwait, and a government that as Ahmed Al-Jaber pointed out, the government is committed in its plans for, was it 2035 or 2030, excuse me if I forget, is committed to more e-services. It would seem to me that that there would be greater interest in what you're doing.
Yeah.
And perhaps this is not a criticism, but just an advice. It really would be nice for the researcher not taking there used to be an old FBI program in the United States called Dragnet, where the tagline was always, I'm just giving you the facts, somebody else interprets them. Maybe we have to get a little bit beyond that and say, look, this is what science tells us, and this is a problem. It's a matter of national interest. And in fact, it can really make Kuwait look good if we go this little extra step, which is really not that expensive. It just requires thinking about the issue and making people do things. We learn a lot about bureaucracies along the way, and we learn a lot about how governments work and how governments should work, which is an interesting issue.
Yeah, I agree with you that especially in my opinion now, because of the COVID-19, they have this kind of reforming actually the e-services. I know that now they have the mobile application Sahel, and they are trying to centralize all the services in one place. So this is great, but yes, maybe it needs approaching them again and see what do they think about it in the vision of the new Kuwait. So that can be a good idea.
Anyway, excellent presentation.
Thank you, Dale.
Mr. Jassim Al-Mutawa.
Yes, thank you for giving me a chance to, introduce myself. My name is Jassim Mutawa. I'm an advisor in IT in the markets, been around in Kuwait and Saudi Arabia for the past 18 years. Worked with a number of ministers and government agencies. I'd like to share with you a story that might, put some breath of hope in what you just indicated. Recently, the Prime Minister, in the visit of Kuwait University, there was a chance for him to interact with students who graduated, who had an opinion, to dialogue with him. And one amazing young girl, which was a graduate of the law school, she was in a position to indicate the accessibility challenge she has. She's a blind student, but she's the first of her class. But she introduced it in a way that she suggested a number of very important things for people in Kuwait that can benefit from the services and the applications that had started to become important to people in Kuwait. And the Prime Minister picked that up personally and assembled a team to sit with her. And they started now doing a number of very important evaluations on where and how they can take this in a practical way, not in a way to show off, but in a way to make a big difference. And things are in motion as I speak, and things are progressing in its early stage, but it's a journey for discovery and implementation. So I applaud you for having this initiative, and I would want to have a chance maybe to connect you to the right people and have a chance to really get things even more impactful in your desire to do something for Kuwait.
Thank you, Mr. Jassim. Yes, we would like to take this to the next level, actually. And here, I think if we look to the potential, let's say, that the people with disability can reach, because this is not, by the way, about accessing information. It's not about having the e-government services accessible. It's about having a policy that will be enforcing having such kind of public services that is available, so it can open for them education, work, using services, and so on. And as I said at the beginning, it's part of a human right. So it's an issue also of making things much easier on them, let's say, especially at these hard times when we have lockdown and so on and COVID-19. And thank you for offering that. Sure, I will be more than happy to communicate with you.
Sure. Unfortunately, I missed the beginning of the presentation and I couldn't get involved, but no, I sensed the topic. It was very important for me. And I'm part of the team that is been initiating. I submitted actually a report from a company I work with. It's called Gartner. And we provided it on where the government's practices are happening. And it was part of something that is evolving of this nature. You mentioned the application Sahel. And one of the important things that Sahel had in its design was to make actually what the name starts to apply, which is making things simple and Sahel, making something Sahel. And the idea behind it started actually in 2004, where we wanted to do a push to the citizens rather than the people actually come and pull their information. So the government becomes smarter in making triggers. Whenever something happens to a certain person, you send him not a notification, a smart notification with choices for him to take. So it makes it easier for him to know what things he needs to make as a decision based on that. And it's evolving now in linking all the agencies by APIs. And it started in 2004, but it wasn't ready for the technology. After that, we assembled young coders from the government, and we ran them as a startup inside the government under the cabinet of ministries, and they started innovating the concept. And that's the starting point of where Sahel started evolving. It's still
nice.
in its very early foundations, but the foundations are correct, and it's going to keep evolving. We have now, the starting point was with wave 0. We're going to have wave 1, 2, and 3, and 4. But each wave will have different activities, different ways of thinking, and it's all based on user experience. The idea was to make the government from managing services to managing experiences. And that's the whole idea of Sahel.
That's nice. Yeah. And actually, while you are speaking, I remember because I had Sahel in my phone. The experience of when I'm using Sahel, it was pretty simpler than the other application that I was using before from the government in Kuwait. So I think they are working in the right direction. And the thing about the let's say the tailoring the way of interacting with the user in a way that is more depending on the user profile, I think this will be the future. So using machine learning in order to identify the way of the interaction and what